He's late. Classic Tommo. Always late. Yet, you're here. Thank you all for coming. Welcome everyone to the post-race Chinwag for the 2022 Japanese Grand Prix. Hello everyone, how are we doing? David, Bhavani, Nicholas, Cone, Tim, JM, Samuel, Louis, Aaron, Irfan, Nicholas, Tim, here, Yanis, Levi, Will, Jay, JW, Encage, Pablo, Levi, Jacob, Christopher, Deepak, Taylor, good to see you, mate. William, Edits, Nathan, Theo, Ty, DX Roller, Apanav, Hamza, hello, mate. Adam, Alex. How are we doing, everyone? How are we doing? How are we feeling? Are we feeling, for anyone else in Europe, how are we recovered in terms of sleeping? Because I didn't get much before the race, but I did get some in. I did get a little bit of shut-eye in. I got like 2.5, maybe 3 hours, if we're pushing it. So I did get some in, and then last night I had about 7 hours sleep. So I haven't really caught up. But then I guess you spread that over 2 nights, and that's like 5 hours a night on average for the last 2 nights, which isn't too bad. That's quite recoverable, you know. On the lash Saturday night, mate, I've been on the lash for ages. I haven't been on the lash since my stag do, have I? No, I haven't. I haven't been on the lash since my. I'm a good, honest man, who does not go on the lash. I do look a bit tired though, don't I? Thank you to everyone who's here after the fact as well. Obviously, plenty of you are here live. I appreciate that. But plenty of you watch this after the fact as well. And I see you. Okay. Most of you watch after the fact, actually. I'm always tired. Look, I'm usually pretty good. I've got better with my sleep, actually. My 8 sleep mattress actually does help. But yeah, anyway. Enough of my sleeping pattern. No one cares about that. We've got a lot to talk about for this Japanese Grand Prix. First and foremost, let's start with a race rating. So what are we saying? Out of 10. What are you giving this 2022 Japanese Grand Prix? And thank you, Edits, for the $1 mate. Appreciate it. Thank you very much, buddy. You Australians are by far and away the most generous, by the way, in the super chats. It's always an Australian. Love you lot. Right, yes. What are we saying? 6, 5, 4, 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, 7, 6, 4. Okay. 7. There's some 7s in there as well. Okay. Aussie. Right, let's. Okay, so judging from that, what I'm going to do is get a poll going. And so it'll be 4 or less. I've only got 4. YouTube, add more options to your polls, please. Please, I beg. Right. Let's get a poll going, all right? Then we'll get a better idea of what our collective... Hello, Matthew. Yes, mate. Exactly. Proving my point there with the $2 Appreciate it, mate. Thank you. Now would be a good time to insert ads. YouTube, stop trying to make me advertise more things tomorrow. I already advertise enough to you lot, right? Thank you, Will, mate, for the $5. Good job on the last lap. You lads got us through the long delay. Much appreciated. And yep, it was Andretti. Indeed it was, mate. That was the answer to who won the 1976 Japanese Grand Prix. The first ever Japanese Grand Prix, wasn't it? Yeah, man. Last lap was tough, but it was fun. Pete and Mahad are jokes. Like it actually, we were live for almost 4 hours for the last lap, which is the F1 live watch along show that me and Niran do. And man, we got so I got up at 3:30. I left at about, when did I leave? I left at about 4:15. No, earlier than that. About 4:05. Got to the studio just before 5. Set up for half hour. And then go live at 5:30. And then the race finished, whatever time it finished UK time. I can't even remember. But we were live for like 4 hours. Almost 4 hours. Just short of 4 hours total. So yeah. But it was fun though. It was fun. And I guess doing that live show, especially when there's delays, that's when it kind of comes into its own, you know what I mean? Because it's not for everyone. And I appreciate that. That's fine. But when there are delays, you know, and you're looking for something to watch, then you've got, you know, the show's popping off, mate. So yeah. Cheers, appreciate it. Thank you, DX Rodder, as well, for the $1 Kiwi. Big up the Kiwi. And Outzee for the $2 Aussie. I would live in Australia if it was closer. I really would. Thank you, Dave, for the €5 as well. Do you know when Red Bull can mathematically seal the Constructors' title and which results they need for it? Cheers for all the content. You know what, Dave? I don't know. I don't know what Red Bull need exactly. But yeah, it's as inevitable as Max winning the Driver Championship was going to be. Right, let's have a look at your ratings. So 16% say 4 or less, 24% say 5, 36% say 6, 24% say 7 or more. You lot are generous, man. I said this after Singapore. I think you lot are being very generous with your ratings. And again, bear in mind, a 5 out of 10 is like not a good, not a bad race. It's like bang in the middle. Is it 27 points? Look, I mean, we're all entitled to our opinions. But for me, I'll be honest, and I've watched obviously I watched the race in full live, and then I watched the extended highlights back as well to pick out all the best bits. Maybe I'm being too hard. Maybe. But for me, it's a 4 out of 10. It's a 4 out of 10. First of all, we only got 45 minutes of racing. And you have to take that into account. It wasn't a full race. How many laps did we get? How many laps did we get in the end? And how many laps were we meant to get? And also, Alex broke down immediately. So there wasn't, because the race was short, 28 out of 52. Come on, like, it was just over half distance, right? So that's one thing, right? We didn't get as much racing. I love the eye rolls. Hey, listen, look. I'm in the 17% camp. What can I say? And yeah, look, it was... There were moments. You had the Ocon defense of Hamilton, which was pretty exciting to watch. You had Seb and Fernando almost photo finish at the end. You had a balls to the wall finish with Leclerc going wide and Perez ending up getting that P2 with a penalty. There were moments for sure, but I mean, there was so much, a little racing relatively. We were waiting for so long. I don't know. Yeah, exactly, Matthew. 4 isn't a bad race, just a bit below average. Totally fair. Which I think, you know. And also, I guess when I'm factoring in kind of everything. And I think the fact that the FIA are once again front and centre of the conversation is probably not this. This isn't a Suzuka that will live long in the memory. Beyond, I guess, because Max won the championship, it will live long in the memory, right? But if he hadn't won the championship, I think this was a pretty forgettable race. I'll be honest. I believe what I believe. But there you go. There you go. Thank you, Jay, for the 5NZD. If the race was longer, it would have been interesting to see strategy play out. Yeah, that's the thing. We kind of... It was one of them that, you know, the drivers at the back had less to lose, chucking the inters on early. And then, obviously, we saw, you know, Vettel and Latifi gain massively from that. And, yeah, there was some... You had some good passes by George, because you see that Mercedes, having so much more downforce, was able to pass around the S's, wasn't it? A couple of times. But obviously, the Mercedes didn't have no straight line speed, so it was always going to be an uphill battle for the Mercedes boys to make too much progress, you know. But yeah, I think there's a broader conversation around rain delays, around what the FIA, what Formula One, what Suzuka as a circuit can do more. Like, it seems to quite clearly be a bit of a drainage problem at Suzuka, which I think these new F1 cars with these new tyre compounds, you know, the tyres are very big, very wide. They're kicking up. I mean, the full wet tyre is basically pointless, right? Because if the conditions require a full wet, then you're kicking up so much water. They're displacing so much water, then you can't. Visibility is like completely pointless. But there you go. That's what I thought anyway. I thought it was just a bit below average. And average is 5. Okay. You know, each their own. We'll see. It was mid. Exactly, Nicholas. It was mid. Okay, so let's have a look at the results then, shall we? Of the 2022 Japanese Grand Prix, Max Verstappen took the win and took the full 25 points, not 45 points. He wishes. Not that mad. He still won the championship. Sergio Perez P2, Charles Leclerc P3. We'll talk a bit about that incident in a bit. Ocon P4. I mean, obviously with Sainz's shunt, Ocon would have finished P5. So great job in qualifying. Held on to it. Kept Lewis at bay. Spoilers indeed. Kaleidoscope. Spoilers indeed. Hamilton P5. Vettel P6. What an interesting race Seb had. Got into Q3. Shot down to the back of the order. Ended up playing a strategy blinder to make his way through the field. Fernando Alonso P7. 7/1000ths of a second behind Sebastian Vettel. If you haven't seen the imagery, in fact, maybe later I'll just chuck a picture on the stream if you haven't, because there's no TV coverage. I'm sure the F1 channel, I mean, they definitely will upload the onboards of Vettel and Alonso side by side going across the line. George Russell P8, bit of a forgettable race for him. He wasn't too happy, but I think he's kind of in the. I don't think he's in the right to complain, personally. I think the team played the correct strategy, but again, we'll talk about that in a bit. Latifi, he's got the points. 2 points as well. Again, when we all thought it was like 50% race distance, and we thought at one stage only the top 9 were going to get points, potentially anyway. I was a bit worried that Norris might have caught him, but go Tifi with the points. There you go. And then Ricciardo just outside of it. McLaren, Norris just creeps in and gets the final point on the board. Sainz and Albon, only 2 DNFs, which, given the conditions, actually, you know, it could have been more. I think we were very fortunate this race to get 18 finishes in the end. But there you go. Right, okay, so winners and losers time. W's and L's. Who came out on top? Who came out on not bottom? With this race, right, I think qualifying, you can look at qualifying and some drivers underperformed, some drivers overperformed. I think in the race, it's very hard in these conditions, and the fact that 18 drivers finished, and the only drivers who didn't finish was Sainz having a massive shunt at the start and Albon's car braking. I think the fact that 18 drivers got across the finish line is honestly like a credit to the quality. I know we meme on some of these drivers, right, for maybe not being the top tier, but for 18 drivers to finish this race in these conditions, tricky conditions, big spray, that deserves big credit. And so in terms of L, I'm more going off qualifying, because in the race, you know, like for example, Schumacher fell back, but that's because the team left him out on wets for ages, hoping for a safety car. That's a valid strategy when you're in the position Schumacher's in. So it's worth rolling that dice. So I don't really hold that too much against him. So I can't really think. So to be honest, I've gone more on qualifying, and I think the weakest qualifying performance. But even then he had brake issues. If you're saying quality L, that's Lance Stroll. Maybe. Well, actually, no. Let's look at yours first, actually, because you lot had some interesting. Because that's the thing, you can't give Stroll L with the weekend because of that start. You know what I mean? Your winners and losers are as follows. I'll do mine after. Yeah, Stroll did make a mistake in quality. So, driver W of the weekend, you lot have given it to Sebastian Vettel. 39% of the vote. Very mad weekend. I'm like, because Suzuka's like his favourite track, right? And this is Vettel's last season of his F1 career. I'm so glad that he had such a interesting weekend. Like, great qualifying, spun it at the start of the race, played a good strategy card, was able to make progress through the field, held on to a photo finish at the end. Like, come on. So no wonder Seb's got it. 2% he outscored Verstappen by. Verstappen's weekend. Qualifying was maybe a little bit... I'm going to sneeze. Oh, I'm not going to sneeze. I mean, actually, no. Qualifying was good because Ferrari typically out-qualifies anyway. He put it on pole. Not by much, but he still put it on pole. And then just... boop, off. I agree with this completely. Look, on average, most people should agree with this completely because these are 2,616 votes as well. So I've got a lot of votes here. Latifi, 12% of the vote. Ocon, 10. Team of the weekend, Red Bull, clear. Alpine got a lot of percentage as well, 33%. Aston Martin, 5. Williams, 1. Driver L, again, Sainz. You know, he was, half a tenth off of pole in quali. Aquaplaned into the wall. It's difficult with aquaplaning, isn't it? Because obviously no one else aquaplaned into the wall. Carlos Sainz did. How much of that is bad luck, positioning of your car? How much of it is just completely out of your control? I think there's a degree of... It's hard. Like, do you give... What percentage of responsibility do you put on the driver when someone aquaplanes, you know? It's hard to say. And then let Schumacher, again, strategy worth rolling the dice. Did he do too much wrong? Not really. Like, he was briefly in the lead, you know? For like half a second before Verstappen overtook him. Leclerc, 14%. I think Leclerc, you know what? Like, as much as... Yeah, he put it P2 in qualifying. You know, ended up 20-odd seconds behind Max, but that Red Bull's a much better race car. I think that was a better race car in these conditions. The fact that, Checo was able to close up so much as well. I think that... But Leclerc did make a mistake at the end. So if anything, I think... In terms of what we're putting on the driver, I think Leclerc's maybe arguably got the best argument. And then Gasly, 12% of the vote. Shocker in qualifying. But he did have brake issues. But then so did Tsunoda, and Tsunoda got through. And then very unlucky in the race. Let's remove driver L for this race. Someone's got to get it. One of the 20 has to get it every week. Team L, Haas, 33%. Fair. I mean, not great from either. Yeah, exactly. Nobody really did bad this weekend. Ferrari 18%. Again, what did Ferrari do wrong? Didn't really do anything wrong, but... McLaren 16. Yeah, I mean, 1 point. Not great. AlphaTauri, not great. For me... The teams are the same. I've gone Max driver W of the weekend. Just flawless. 25 seconds ahead by the end. Ocon, I've put in there. clearly. Like, incredible defence throughout the race. My Team W of the weekend's pretty much the same, and Team L. Vettel, obviously, it's no brainer. He has to kind of get the honourable mention up there. Driver L, I went with Gasly, mainly based off qualifying. Yes, he had a brake issue, but so did Tsunoda. So, and then obviously in the race, he was super unlucky, and we'll talk more about, well, actually, in part he was unlucky, in part he was incredibly lucky. Albon, I'm surprised Albon didn't actually make your, because that's the wrong slide. Go to, I'm surprised Albon didn't make driver head of the weekend purely because his car broke down immediately and he got knocked out in Q1. So actually, I think Albon's more deserving of being in the L category than Schumacher, I would say. But again, no one really did anything wrong. You know, that's the thing with this race. No one really did much wrong. If anything, I was just impressed more than anything. But anyway, right, okay. So, how does the championship look now? Thank you, Devin, mate, for the $2. Do you think Red Bull Racing prioritise Checo in Mexico? I hope so. I hope Max returns the numerous favours that Checo's given him over these last kind of 2 seasons at Red Bull and helps him. But I hope it's not like I don't think a proper like gifted win, you know, like whole Barrichello slowing for Schumacher at Austria. I don't want to see that in Mexico because I don't think that, as much as it would be Checo winning in Mexico, I don't know, it wouldn't, for Checo, I don't think it would feel like, you know what I mean? But I think that, yeah, it's an interesting one, actually. Jensen Button W for commentary. JB on comms was really good. Really good. Right, anyway, so, championship standings. Max Verstappen wins, 113 points clear. Sergio Perez 1 point ahead of Charles Leclerc. Big movers, Vettel up to P11. Got good points on the board with P6. Ocon doesn't move but extends his lead relative to Fernando. That's now 13 points. Thank you, Kaleidoscope, for the Aussies. Do you reckon this race Seb truly realised he was retiring? I know what you mean when you say that. I think that, you know, this is his favourite track. I think the reality of this being his last time at Suzuka as an F1 driver probably hit him at one stage. And then Latifi, still on the same points as Nick De Vries, but obviously he's done the whole kind of, you know, the whole season. So he's, you know, he's technically ahead of De Vries now. So well done, Nicholas. Well done, Nicholas. Actually chuffed for him. I know we all, like, you know, we know he's not of the calibre of the standard, right? I think that's fair to say. But he's a decent bloke, and I'm happy for him. Because in the race, you know, he played a strategy card, and he, on merit, once he got into that position, held on to P9. So you can only give him credit for that. Thank you, Kimmy, as well, mate. Tommy? I called myself Tommy. That's awful. Tommo, off topic. Does Schumacher deserve a contract extension? I'd not be surprised if he gets the cut. Schumacher, it's difficult with Schumacher, isn't it? Because, you know, bins his car, aquaplanes, but also, you know, given the conditions, and it's not like it's a practice session, it's the end of the practice session, you shouldn't be putting your car into a position where you aquaplane and crash into a wall at the end of, no matter, right? You shouldn't be doing that. Yet then in qualifying, he outqualifies K-Mag. And then in the race, they play a strategy. He didn't really do too much wrong. It's difficult. I've been considering doing a video about the Schumacher situation because I do think it's maybe like go through and look at actually all of his results and try and kind of objectively compare him to, say, a Tsunoda, because they both rookied in the same year, and see what the, you know, because my instinct is that Schumacher should be kept on. That's what I'm feeling instinctively, without, you know, diving into the numbers and the detail, but I could be wrong there. So yeah, but this was actually quite easy to update because there's not too many changes later on this year. We'll see. Yeah, maybe I will. Maybe I will. Right, so let's break down. What should we do? Let's do team by team. We'll do team by team, and that kind of ends up covering most things. We'll start with Williams, work our way up. Williams, to be expected, they were going to struggle. They've got no downforce on their car. The fact that Alex almost got into Q2, I thought was pretty impressive, given that car has no downforce, and Suzuka is a high downforce track. So many medium speed, high speed corners. I don't know what was the issue for Alex. Actually, I haven't checked. Can let me know in live chat what exactly the issue was. But at the end of the day, right? So Albon, whatever, out the race. Let's see if the good thing with Nicholas's position is it the engine, just the engine. Fair. Yeah, because it looked like he couldn't be a bad driver. So he was so bad, the engine just refused to work for him. Yeah, because it looked like he was stuck in gear, didn't he, when he was like shifting up. So I don't know if it was gearbox or was it the actual power unit itself. Had contact with Magnussen that damaged his radio. Really? Interesting. I didn't know that. But there you go. These things happen. I know you're joking, BK. So that's the beauty of being in this situation, right? Is that you can sit back, you can see what everyone else is doing in front of you, and then you can make a risky strategy call. If you're Latifi, right? If you're at the back of the grid, and there's a chance, there's even like a 10% chance that some mad different strategy would work, right? Just make the call, do it. And you've got to say, it was kind of the same for Vettel because of his spin. If Vettel hadn't had that spin, genuinely, right? I think if Vettel hadn't had that spin, I think he might have finished. I think he would have finished lower. I think the spin helped him out because I don't think Seb would have pitted because he would have been up there in the points and less likely to, you know what I mean? Yeah, it does make sense. When you're at the back, you can just roll that dice. You're like, well, what's there to lose? I'm at the back, miles behind. What's there to lose? I might as well roll the dice and see what happens. No, they knew about the Inters being better than wets. Yeah, but again, making that call, when you're at the front in the top 10, you've got more to lose. You're going to be more reluctant to make that decision, just in case it is the wrong one. You're going too early. But again, when you're at the back, you have less to lose. Seb made the call to pit, the correct call to pit. Came in, did a great job. And so did Latifi. So credit to Latifi here, you know? Credit to Latifi for making that call. Was it the most difficult call in the world to make? No, again, for the reason I've just explained. But what I was impressed with the fact that he was able to kind of hold on to it. He said that his front tyres were shot. Yet he was able to hold on in the race, kind of in a similar way to how kind of in Hungary last year, he got into that position and then did like hold on to it. So credit to him, fair play, because it's a tricky track, Suzuka. So actually, I think, yeah, I think given that opportunity, he could have frozen up in that and easy to make an error, but he didn't. So fair play. Yeah, good shout, Andreas, actually. Like the stream, everyone. As Andreas says, like the stream. Make sure you subscribed as well. I'm sure you probably are. You better be. Otherwise we're having words. Yeah, so... And yeah, Alex, obviously, yeah, whatever. Done. Vettel didn't spin by accident, change my mind. Just imagine if Vettel hadn't spun and pitted when he did. Goodness gracious me. Imagine that. Podium, mate. Shows me. I've not got Minton. My mum came here this morning to pick him up. So no Minton. Minton is not here. But yeah. So yeah, Williams got to be happy, really. Got to be happy with that. They scored. Yeah, they now have 8 points as a constructor instead of 6. So made the call, paid off. Happy days. Chat is in shambles. Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Might have to get the picture up of Minton with his I'm 4 when he was 4, because he was 4 recently. 4 years old, bless him. Right, okay, Williams done. Haas next. So yeah, like I say, how do you solve a problem about Mick Schumacher, right? Because Mick's clearly got pace, right? He outqualified K-Mag, fair on merit, right? But also shunted and ruined his chassis in FP1, which is like, come on, Mick. And then in the race, again, I don't, I've not really got too much to say negative or positive, because when Haas kind of, once everyone else is pitted for inters and Mick's still on the wets, you kind of just have to commit to it, because you don't know, like, if a safety car comes out, you kind of got to commit. You roll that dice, didn't pay off. Now people are saying that was spin on purpose. It obviously didn't spin on purpose, obviously. But I'm just saying, it worked out all right in the end, didn't it? And then K-Mag just had a bit of... Yeah, true bandit. He didn't shunt in FP1, he shunted after FP1. I mean, what you're saying is facts. That is actually true. But yeah, I don't know. Not much to say about Haas. There's literally not much to say about Haas at all, to be honest. Yeah, K-Mag made some passes in the race, but he was P14 in the end, wasn't he? So, I've got nothing to say. I'm sorry. I've got nothing left. AlphaTauri. Yeah, I was hopeful that Yuki would be able to hold on to points at the start, because he was running in the top 10 towards the start of the race, when the race eventually got going anyway, but ended up falling back in the order. It just seems like AlphaTauri just didn't have much pace, which is a shame. But Yuki completed the race, no shunting, got his full Grand Prix distance in at his home track, so happy for him for that. And yeah, the brake problems, I don't know. I saw someone did an article, but I'd be honest, I didn't read it, about what exactly the brake problems were. So I'm sure if you're interested, you can find that. Again, AlphaTauri, not much to say. What I will say is, when Pierre lost his front wing, the wing that they replaced it. See the front wing in this image, the nose anyway. I don't know if the wing's different, but the nose is definitely different. The nose that he started with was different to the front wing that they put on. So they put on an old spec front wing. Maybe it was higher downforce, or maybe they just didn't have enough new front wings. If you've played F1 Manager, you know all about that, right? You know all about that. And obviously, yeah, we'll talk more about Gasly and the truck and all that at the end, right? But in terms of the actual driving performances, again, not much to say. Not much to say. Alfa Romeo, Joe spun, didn't he, at the start? Which again, I mean, okay, hard to be too critical of him, given the conditions, given the spray, especially for the cars at the back. Obviously, the further you are back, the more you're a victim of the spray, right? Like, it's fine. It's fine for like Max at the front. He's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? This is good conditions for inters. And then Leclerc's like, yeah, it's okay. I can deal with this. And then Joe's just like it's everywhere. And yeah, and Joe got fastest lap of the race as well. That is true. Joe did get fastest lap as well. So big up Joe Guanyu. Valtteri, yeah, I don't think we saw him like at all, did we? I don't remember anything from Valtteri's race, I'll be honest. And it's a shame, yeah. Alfa Romeo had real good momentum at the start of the season. Valtteri was scoring really good points pretty consistently at the start of the year, but their just car development just seems to have stalled. All I can hope is that Alfa Romeo had a great start to the year, so they were like, sick, we've got like a really good race car. Let's just try and consolidate what we've got, understand it as much as we can. Yeah, we'll fall down the pecking order a bit as the season goes on, but those early points at the start of the year will kind of stand us in good stead, and then we can put all of our resource into next year. That's what I'm hoping is the deal with Alfa Romeo. Because they developed a good car at the start of the year, yes. One that could get in the points consistently at the start of the year, yes. But if it means that they can use that and get ahead for next year, copium maybe, but we'll see. Thank you, Will, mate. Again, appreciate it. If you play F1 Manager, you know helipad comes first. True. Very based of you, Will. Very based. Okay, so yeah, not much more to say on Alfa Romeo. Who next? Let's go Alpine. Alpine. After 2 very poor weekends on the trot for the Alpine lads, Ocon and Fernando, nil point. 2 weekends in a row. Big points. Big points. Could have been more if Alonso had pipped Vettel at the end, which he didn't. Ocon, mate. With Gasly now being officially announced as his teammate for next year, I think Ocon's, like, chest out. Oh, come on then, Pierre. Verstappen, bloody Ocon, mate. That was a great race from Esti Besti, wasn't it? Great race from Esteban. Great qualifying performance. Again, if he doesn't put in that qualifying performance, he isn't ahead of Hamilton. Makes a good start. Keeps, again, a clearly quicker car. You look at the progress that Russell was making. It would have been interesting to see what Lewis's pace would have been if Ocon hadn't been in the way relative to the top drivers. I reckon he might have caught shot, I feel like Mercedes were quicker than Ferrari in these conditions. But yeah, Ocon, worldy, no doubt. No question. Killed it. For me, he's right up there with potential drivers. Well, for me, he was honourable mention behind Verstappen. Alonso, mate, it's tough, man. And I think that the team didn't make it easy for him. I think what we're seeing now, and if you haven't heard Fernando's post, so F1 post all the driver radios, right, on the after the checkered flag, and Fernando wasn't happy with the team. He was like, "Why?" I can't remember the exact quote. You can find the video. Paraphrasing, he's like, basically like, "Why do you keep doing this to me on strategy?" Because I think Fernando wanted to come in earlier when he did pit for inters at the end, for the fresh inters, and he feels, and I don't disagree, I think if he pits earlier, then he jumps Vettel. So I think that's a big mistake from Alpine. And then also kind of in the race, the initial choice to come onto the intermediate tyre, that came really late for Alonso as well. And I think both times he wanted to come in earlier. And both times the right decision was definitely to come in earlier. So I don't really understand what Alpine were doing, what they were playing at. And look, don't get me wrong, right? I don't think there's some, like, this is some, like, nonsense conspiracy about, they want to keep him behind Ocon. Like, no. Like, they're in a constructors battle with McLaren that's going to go to the wire by the looks of it, right? I don't think that at all. I just blame incompetence, to be honest. That's literally, like, that's what I put it down to. But they should have put him earlier, both occasions. Yeah, exactly. Even Jensen, my friend, on the comms was like, yeah, it's clear as day. You had to put him earlier. And yeah, a P6 100% should have been on the cards if Alpine had just played their cards better. And yeah, weird. And, maybe it is this, because it's not the first time we've seen a bit of incompetence from Alpine, No, there's no cost cap breach news yet, but we'll see later today. Kind of forgot about that, haven't we? But Jensen is correct. Not good. But at the end of the day, it's still a good team result in the end. P4, P7. That puts them back ahead of McLaren in the constructors, especially as Lando only got 1 point. Daniel didn't get any. Okay, Alpine done. Next, let's talk Aston Martin. Yeah, mate, another good weekend for Aston Martin. They've had 2 on the bounce now, which is promising, especially where you consider that car was at the start of the year. I think in terms of progression, we talk about Alfa Romeo moving backwards since the start of the year. Aston Martin have definitely moved forwards, no doubt. Seb getting his Q3. Lance the Rainmaster Lance Stroll. Lance, honestly, in these kind of conditions, Lance Stroll is actually a really good F1 driver. He's slow in qualifying in dry conditions. If he can sort that out, Lance would actually be a really good. I think he's a good F1 driver. I think a lack of pace in quali really hinders his ability to score higher up. Kind of like what we're seeing this year with Daniel Ricciardo. I think qualifying pace is Daniel Ricciardo's biggest issue by far. I think if he didn't have this massive qualifying delta between Lando, then I think race pace wise, he's much closer. I still think he's behind Lando in race pace, but not by much at all. But yeah, Lance, like, fair play to him, right? Fair play. He's used this privilege that he has to get this super early seat in F1 when he joined Williams when he was like 17, 18, whatever, however old he was, 18, I think. And he wasn't, you know, he'd capitalised in certain situations, but he clearly wasn't, you know, the finished product by any stretch of the imagination. But I think now we are seeing, and we saw it briefly, like start of 2020, he was really strong as well. He had a really good start to the year. I think when he had that crash in Mugello, that seemed to, I don't know, take away some confidence. I think he said the car never felt the same after that as well. He's put in the work. CJ, I disagree. I think it's Lance Stroll now. And yes, it's because he's been purchased opportunities with his wealth, right? Be that when he was a junior, or be that being in F1 consistently since he joined, right? But that money, that privilege, has bought him the opportunities to improve, and he has clearly improved. So, you know, I think Lance Stroll's been actually, you know, I think he is underrated. I think he's had a really good, strong last few races, actually. His start is a joke. Watch it back. He goes full send. And look, maybe, on the last side we're talking about this, maybe, in part, it's because Lance knows that his seat is safe. So he can drive with a freedom that a lot of other drivers can't. So, for example, like Schumacher, right now, given the pressure, given the words by Günther Steiner, if there's a risky move, is he likely to send it? Less likely than Stroll. Because if Stroll shunts, he's like, okay, we'll go again next week. He doesn't have to worry about his seat. You know what I mean? But yeah, we'll see. It'd be interesting to see him against Fernando next year, though. I do still think Alonso will, like, body him. I do. But it's a good challenge for Lance, and it will only help with his development. You look at Lance Stroll's teammates. He's had Sergio Perez, he's had Sebastian Vettel, and he's going to have Fernando Alonso. Like, if they're not drivers you can learn from, then you got no chance. You know what I mean? Okay, so yeah, but no points in the end for Lance Stroll because he started so far back, qualified P19 at the end of the day, so it was always going to be a tough ask. But yeah, Vettel, you know, made the call early doors. Again, I think, you know, it was a easier call to make when you're at the back after his spin than it would have been if he had been, you know, in the top 10. But he made the call, made it work, kept onto the tyres. And again, that photo finish, actually, let's see if, let's find a image of, so, come on, Alonso, Vettel, just get something off Twitter. Let's save image. Yep, there we go. Save it in the old downloads. So if you haven't seen it, because we didn't see it on the race feed, but this, hopefully this works, is how. Are you gonna work? No, you're not gonna work. Actually, hang on. I'm gonna have to open this in Photoshop. Give me a minute. But yeah, no, Vettel, great drive. And actually, yeah, the two of them, I think Fernando and Sebastian, have Fernando and Sebastian had like any big high profile crashes? Because I know they've had some fantastic battles over the years, but have they actually had a proper shunt into each other before? because nothing comes to mind, but I'm probably missing something, aren't I? Hang on 2 secs. Let me just save that in there. Don't know why that's not. Let me drag it. No. I can't think of. Can't think of some of my technical problems there. That's me. Right, hang on. So this should load up. This is how them two cross the. I mean, look at that. That image is sick. There's a better quality image out there, but I just found the lowest res. Look at that. Look at the gap. Woo. It's cool, isn't it? But yeah, another good weekend for Aston Martin. What can I say? Another good weekend for Aston Martin McCutcheon. Yeah, you can, if you want to see more, like there's fan videos as well from the side that show the two coming through. It's good. You're not allowed to show that. Yeah, it might get age restricted because that image is just too beautiful. There you go. Right, next team, we're going to talk about McLaren. Yeah, just seemed to struggle. Just didn't have pace this weekend, seemingly. I mean, they qualified, Danny Rick qualified. Where did they qualify? I can't actually remember. By the time you tell me, I'll have the Wikipedia page up. So, it's 10th and 11th, which is exactly where they finished as well. There you go. Yeah, I thought it was because Daniel looked good in like Q1, didn't he? And then he just got squeezed out in Q2. So I still can't believe they didn't show that Vettel Alonso photo finish on the live feed. Honestly, what a yoke. They was faffing around with the points at the time. Didn't know what was going on. Yeah, not much to say about McLaren. Not a great weekend. Daniel wasn't a mile off Lando at all. Hard to comment too much on the race. I can't actually remember what the gap between them was. Yeah, just one to forget for McLaren. That's kind of it, really. Should have boxed Daniel earlier. Yeah, and I think a lot of teams, should have boxed earlier in hindsight. Mercedes. Obviously, yeah, Lewis had the stronger weekend, no doubt. I think Russell said he was struggling with that braking issue, wasn't he? He mentioned he was having the same issue that he had in Singapore, where the car seems to kind of, it feels there's still a little bit of throttle on as he's going through the corner, which is, or maybe that's just the brake applying and then slightly unapplying. I don't know the details. Yeah, I think obviously shame for Lewis that he couldn't get past Ocon because he was kind of stuck there the whole race. But you could see down the straight, when tried to make the move around the outside of 130R, which was, that was close. They were very close to each other, but they gave each other just enough room. You could see as soon as Lewis came out of Esteban's slipstream, and with no DRS, remember, that Alpine was faster in a straight line. Whether that's the engine power, whether that's less wing, and probably less wing, right? Because the Mercedes was running higher wing. They set the car up for rainy conditions. The problem was, if you've got two cars, you've got one that's good in the corners but rubbish in a straight line, one that's rubbish in the corners, good in a straight line. In a race, you're always likely to have more success overtaking with the quick in a straight line, slow in the corners car. Because you can't really, in a straight line, if you've got a delta, if you've got an advantage, what can you do to defend that? You can weave a little bit, but if you weave too much, you get a penalty. If they're going to go past you, they're going to go past you in a straight line. Whereas in the corners, you can get your elbows out and drive in the middle of the road. You know what I mean? So, yeah, tough weekends. They seem to enjoy it. Lewis seemed to really enjoy himself, which was nice to see. So, not much more to say on them, really. Oh yeah, George. Yeah. George was having a little moan up on the radio, which I think, I think Mercedes made the right call. Like, you can always say Mercedes should have pitted George a lap earlier. Well, they should have pitted Lewis a lap earlier. Like, at the end of the day, it was better for Mercedes to double stack and pit them both at the same time than pit Lewis and then wait another lap to pit George. Russell would have lost more time doing another lap on the wets than he did. He lost a couple of seconds behind Lewis with the double stack. Weren't admits really 5. No, they weren't that many seconds quicker, but George only lost like a couple of seconds. He didn't lose that much time. And he would have lost more time. That's what Mercedes said. Like, having watched the race, I've got no doubt he would have lost more time if he'd have stayed out another lap on the softs. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, look, and I know some people are like, oh, George moaning. I mean, look, racing drivers moan, and some people don't like how George comes across. I mean, look, at the end of the day, like he's out for himself, as are all these drivers. He wants the best for himself, and he's determined, and that means that when things don't go his way, he's not going to be happy. You need a bit of that attitude to an extent. You need that attitude to achieve it. How you convey that, how those words come out of your mouth, and the tone and all that, like the way when Max blows up on the radio, or when Lewis blows up on the radio, or when George blows up on the radio, or when Fernando blows up on the radio. Like, it's very common that drivers blow up on the radio. The only driver I can think of who doesn't like really moan on the radio is Ricciardo. Which other drivers don't moan on the radio? And whether it's like a whiny moan or whether it's like a shouty moan, like, but they're in racing cars. Like, they're putting, like, they're under like extreme pressure. Their BPM is probably flying off. Yeah, Valtteri doesn't really. Carlos is usually pretty chill. Joe. But I think as well, like the most successful drivers are the ones who typically do have something to say. You know what I mean? Let's be honest. Yeah, Albon's chill, but Alex is partial to a little moan up sometimes. Charles just suffers. But yeah, look, I think that all I'm saying is, right, I know that there's a bit of, and I get it to an extent, because at first it does seem like, he's just having a moan, but like, also, come on, he's an F1 driver trying to optimize his best solution. If he doesn't think it's the right call, then he's entitled to voice it. That's all I'm saying. Egos are important. You do kind of need a bit of an ego. Right, Ferrari. Yeah, I mean, not much to say about Carlos. Aquaplaned into the wall. Shame. Could have been on for a good result because he was very close to Leclerc in qualifying in terms of pace. And yeah, everyone's forgetting Albon saying "race me so hard." Come on, surely that's the prime moan that everyone loves to remind me of. And then yeah, Leclerc obviously in race didn't really do much wrong until right at the end, to be honest. And I think you have to, Leclerc. I guess I would be surprised if in hindsight that Leclerc doesn't look back at that final chicane and think, if I did that again, I would do it differently. And I'm not just saying brake earlier, because if you just brake really early, then Perez just goes up the inside. I'm just saying, like, the positioning of his car, I think he could have defended the inside, broken a little bit earlier, lifted off a bit earlier to kind of close off the corner to not give, and just like properly park it, just park it. I know, listen, I'm not a racing driver, right? But from what I've seen and how you can defend, what we saw Ocon, we saw Ocon defending that whole race against Lewis. I feel like Charles should have done better there, in my opinion. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think the penalty was fair, to be honest. Because Perez, I think the penalty was fair in terms of, gaining a lasting advantage. Like, if you make a mistake, if there's gravel in the inside of that corner, then obviously Perez takes the P2, right? Whether or not there's gravel on the inside of a chicane that you lock up and go straight on at, that shouldn't be the determining factor whether you finish P2 or P3, you know what I mean? Like, he made the mistake because Perez was attacking. Perez was like breathing down his neck. Leclerc made an error, and Perez deserved that position. No doubt in my mind. And then in terms of the squeeze, my battery's running low. I'm not even plugged in. I've been doing this whole stream on battery power. This is where the stream levels up now. Thank you, Dewa, for the 20,000 IDR. I'm not sure what that currency is, but thank you, mate. Ferrari needs to change internally and externally. It's hard to question that. Not that they had a particularly bad, like from a strategy point of view, they had an okay race. And in terms of the push, I mean, look, if Perez closes, if Leclerc closes that door to Checo before Checo, any part of Checo's car is alongside, then like fair game. But if you watch the replay, Checo did get, he got his car, that space between the left of Leclerc's car and the end of the track. Perez got some of his car, like his front wing, and I'd argue even like his front right. We haven't seen the onboards, but I think he got some of his. And as far as I'm concerned, as soon as you get some of your car into that gap, then you are entitled space. In that instance, right, when you're coming out of a corner, and there's the end of the track there. That was my kind of immediate reaction looking at it. If Charles gets the car left before, like you said, right, you invite, come up the inside, and then you see Perez going for the inside, and then you're like, nope, and like you shut that door before Perez has got any of his car alongside, that's fine. But I think when you get some of that car alongside, and then Leclerc kept coming across, and then Perez had to back out, So I think ultimately, yeah, I think the penalty was fair at the end of the day, and the stewards, came to their conclusion quicker than they usually do. Probably in part because they knew that decision was going to define whether or not Max was actually officially world champion or not. I reckon that's also why that decision got made so quickly. But yeah, that's Ferrari, and then that leaves Red Bull Racing. Obviously not a great quali from Checo. Not a terrible quali, but not a great. He's still, what was he, 4 tenths off Max, which still isn't amazing. But in the race, just reeled Leclerc in. Just reeled him in slowly and pressured him into making the mistake and got the job done. And yeah, Perez, you're right. Perez is a better racer than qualifier for sure, and he nailed it. You know what I mean? So fair play, Checo. And then Max, Max for me, was driver of the weekend. Not just because he won the race, but he won the race by 25 seconds, and we only had 6 laps at the end, didn't we? Like the way he was just able to pull away, man and machine in perfect harmony. 27 seconds, there you go. It's it was so impressive. It's a deserved championship, and he wraps it up in a very deserving way. I still retain that even if Ferrari's strategy and the occasional Leclerc mistake hadn't happened earlier in the year, I still think, I think it would have gone the distance, probably, the championship, but I still think Verstappen would have ended up winning. Because I just think, on a day like today, Leclerc wasn't even close. Let's be real. Wasn't even close. 27 seconds in 27 laps. It's mad. Max is the Haaland of F1. Does Max run like this? Now, it would have been no doubt, CJ. I mean, look, I think Ferrari bottling strategy and the odd Leclerc mistake has kind of, it's a shame that the championship's wrapped up with 4 races to go. That's what I'm saying. It would have been nice for the championship to go to the distance, but look, this has happened many a time before, many a time before. But yeah, great drive, Max. Great drive. God, we've been going an hour already, man. An hour already, and I've not even spoken about like the main things, the main like talking points to come out of that race. Crazy. How we doing, everyone? We good? We good? We happy? We well? We staying hydrated? Don't forget to drink water. It's good for you. Also, I'm standing up. Remember, I've got my standing desk. Every time you can see the corner of this room cropped like that, ooh, like that. Like that. That's when you know I'm standing up. Thank you, KV, for the $10. Appreciate that. That little geezer flying. That's super geezer. Appreciate it. Thank you for your support. Very kind. Right. Okay. So first thing I think we need to talk about is the points situation. Now, a bunch of channels have already done videos or articles have come out clarifying what has happened, right? So basically, and actually what I'll do is I'll get some imagery up. So let me just save this. So what happened, right, is after Spa 2021, where we got a few laps under safety car, and it was all a bit of a shambles, right? And more points were given than should have been, in the, of course, it was basically just points for qualifying. Hang on, let me just save this as, I'm going to save this as rules. And after that, I think we were all collectively under the impression, and the FIA talked about this, that they weren't happy with how things went, right? And they wanted to make sure that something like that, in terms of how points were divvied out anyway, something like that wouldn't happen again. Now, we kind of did. Kind of. Because you can't tell me that after Spa, and they've got this, and I'll put it on screen now, actually. If it lets me. Why won't you let me put... Mate, honestly, man, this is actually... Oh, it's because it's saved as a GIF file, not a JPEG. What? Who uses a GIF file? JFIF. Who uses that? What's the point? Honestly, what are we doing? Racing or ping pong? Right. Make sure I save it as not a GIF. Okay. I'm going to save it as a PNG. It's good old PNG, man. I can always rely on a PNG to help me out, okay? All right. Which one's the PNG? That's the PNG. Okay. There we go. Boom. Right. I'm gonna stand over here, okay? So the crop's a bit better. And I'll make it a little bit larger on screen. So, this is the kind of ruling around, if the race is only, you can see it says no points awarded if the leader has completed less than 2 laps. No points awarded minimum 2 laps completed by the leader without a safety car VSC, which again, this is all come from Spa, because all of the laps at Spa were completed under safety car, yet points were still given. So this is like that B, right? Is like, oh, you can't get points if only laps are completed behind the safety car, which wasn't the case here. We did have laps behind without safety car, of course. Ferrari manages tyres. Maybe they do. If the leader has completed 2 laps but less than 25% of the scheduled race distance, points will be awarded in accordance with column 1 of the table below, which is fine. So between 2 laps and 25% of the scheduled race distance. So I can't remember. Say for example, it's 60 laps. Say there's a Grand Prix that's 60 laps long. If you complete between 2 laps and 15 laps, you will get 6 points for P1, 4 for P2, 3 for P3, 2 for P4, and 1 for P5. So only the top 5 would have looked better as a J. That's funny. I like that. That's very good. BRZ. And then, yeah, it kind of goes up. So between 25 and 50, you get points in column 2. And then between 50 and 75, points in column 3. Anything over 75, full race, full points, right? Makes sense. Cool. The problem's been sorted. However, and cannot resumed. You can see I've highlighted that at the top. And cannot be resumed. So all of this is worth nothing if the race finishes at the end of the 3-hour countdown. You know what I mean? So you got 3 hours to complete the race, basically. And particularly, obviously, at Suzuka, it was dark quite soon after the race, and you can only, you can only go for so long, right? The problem is, right, all of that goes out the window if the so you could have right, in theory, according to this, you could have, right, the race tries to start and then safety car, you could have what we had, right? You could have what we had, but then the race doesn't restart with 45 minutes to go. It starts with 5 minutes to go, and then it's just 2 more laps because we already had 3 laps. Then you have 2, maybe 3 more laps at the end. So you could have a 6-7 lap race and then award full points because of this kind of oversight, because it's clearly an oversight, right? It's clearly an oversight because the thing is, right, and this is, it's written in the regulation, so it is there. So if anyone was looking objectively beforehand and took the time to look at the rules, right, if anyone did, you would have seen this there. The problem is, because nobody interpreted it like this, no one saw this, everyone just assumed, oh, well, you've got this, so, if we do this many laps, you get that many points. That would make sense, right? The problem is, you can't tell me that this wasn't an oversight, because everyone was talking about this race about 50% points, or 25% points, or 75% points. That's how everyone, even the official F1 account, after Max won, said it was a reduced point race, so he hasn't won the championship yet. And then when it came out, they took it down. I don't understand. Well, I do understand. I think I do understand how no one from the FIA saw all of the conversation going on around it, because actually the official F1 graphics were correct. Because I remember seeing on screen it was plus 25 for Verstappen, and I was like, oh, that must be wrong. That must be wrong, because everyone's talking about this race being awarded at 50%, maybe 75% points, because it would have been in that 50 to 75% category. So it would have been column 3. Column 3 would have been, so it would have been 19 points for Max, 14 for Charles, and 14 for Checo, and 12 for Charles. But because of this little caveat, and cannot be resumed, none of this counts, and it's full points, which is obviously stupid. So again, it's an oversight, because even the FIA, it's not like a rule that was intended, because if it was a rule that had intent, someone at the FIA would have seen all of the talk around it and been like, oh, hang on, no, the race is probably good, we're going to finish this race, so none of that actually counts. Yet didn't think to communicate that. Is pretty mad. It's pretty bizarre. But I guess kind of like Spa. Hopefully this will be addressed now. More so because, look, have I got a massive problem with a 28, however many laps it was, race, finishing with 4 points? I don't think it deserves 4 points. I think, again, the points in column 3, I would prefer that, because it wasn't a full race distance. But am I going to lose sleep over it? No. Like, they still did plenty of racing. It wasn't like a one-lap shootout getting 4 points. Like, I don't have a massive issue with it. What I guess my kind of bigger annoyance is, well, once again, it's a lack of communication from the FIA. We've seen this numerous times. But also, it kind of robbed Max of the opportunity to get that kind of cross the finish line, you're the world champion vibe. You know what I mean? Like, he crossed the finish line just thinking, okay, well, we'll get it done, you know, next race. And that kind of robbed him of that a bit, which I thought was a shame. Because even the teams didn't know. And this is what I mean, right? It's clearly an oversight. A, because the FIA didn't see all that and think to communicate with the teams. And the fact that, like, all the official broadcasters, like, people get things wrong, right? But the fact that the FIA didn't see that everyone was getting it wrong and then be like, oh, by the way, actually, we've actually made a bit of an oversight and actually this is going to happen. Like, if that's the way it is, then that's the way it is, right? Fine. But communicate it, you know? And yeah, everyone thought there was another lap as well. Yeah, that was weird. That was kind of weird. Red Bull didn't know, Williams did, funnily enough. Yeah, that's what, like, the team's towards the back. It's just strange. It's strange. It just, again, the fact that it just went all race, you had all these graphics, like, again, watching the Sky Sports feed, you have all these graphics prepared, and it's like, was there not, like, anyone who just put, actually, we should probably double check this rule, because actually, this will dictate the championship? I don't know. It's very odd. Very, very odd. But yeah, so there's that, which, look, I mean, is it that deep? No, I don't think that's I think it's the FIA being a bit, you know, no one's picking up on a problem, but look, it's not the end of the world, right? The bigger problem is quite clearly what happened with the truck on track. And also, actually, before we do this, I'm just going to swap my battery around on my camera. So you're about to turn into a rainbow. Look at that. Rainbow. So yeah, with again, there's been a couple of videos. Actually, I'd recommend. Let me find the video actually from my boy Matt Amos. He did a really well put together. It kind of illustrates. No, that's the wrong. There we go. I'll put the link in chat. Actually, I'll pin the link in chat. And I'd recommend you watch this after this stream. Obviously, after this stream. All right. Don't leave me. Don't leave. Please stay. And I'll link this. I'll pin that at the top of chat. Right, yeah, so basically what happened. So everyone's out, Carlos crashes, Hamilton almost T-bones him, which was really scary. Really scary. Gasly comes through, obviously Carlos has collected one of the Rolex advertising boards, so Gasly collects that ruins his front wing. So he's going around slower. Obviously the VSC / safety car, I think it was a safety car straight away, wasn't it? When they saw the size of Carlos's shunt. Safety car comes out. Pierre's obviously going slower around behind everyone because he's got a big bit of Rolex attached to the front of his car. Comes into the pits, gets the new front wing. So front wing change. So now he's like way off the back of everyone else who's behind the safety car, right? And as Pierre's coming out of the pits with his fresh new front wing, the safety car and the trail of cars behind is already like past the S's, heading up to kind of Spoon, like not that far off of Sainz's accident. Now, again, it's raining at the time. Pierre's trying to kind of catch up to the queue, and he's got his Delta, which the drivers have to drive to with Delta when they're behind the safety car. And Pierre said he was 9 seconds behind his Delta when he actually, by the time the race was red flagged. So everyone's behind the safety car. Pierre's catching up, going through the S's. a quick speed, not full racing speed, but to his delta. Then you go around Spoon, and obviously Pierre's now approaching the accident, right? Now, obviously, I don't actually know how much of the accident itself Pierre saw, but I guess he was under the impression that Carlos was still his car was on the left side of the track, which is why I guess Pierre was on the right-hand side. But obviously we saw from Carlos's shunt in the first place that, he aquaplaned on that right-hand side of the track there. Now, 2 seconds before Pierre gets to where Carlos's car is and where there's also a tractor that everyone else has had to go past. So everyone else also went past the tractor behind the safety car, because the tractor basically came out as soon as everyone cleared the science accident. The tractor actually came out really quickly. So everyone else, I think Alonso said he didn't even see the tractor. He was on the right hand side behind the safety car, and he was like, I didn't even see the tractor, which is it just tells you how little visibility there was. So Pierre is instinctively on the right. He's driving to his delta. 2 seconds before he gets to the shunt, the red flag comes out, and then he passes the truck. Going, I don't know how quick he was going when he actually passed the truck. Now, obviously, there's been a lot spoken of the fact that, so after he passed the truck, the race is then red flagged, and Pierre did speed basically on the way back. He was going too fast. But obviously, clearly, if you've not heard his radio from in the car when he passes it, I'd recommend listening to it, because it gives a bit of an insight, I think. And the stewards did kind of take this into account. Pierre was fuming in the car, and we saw when he got out of the car he was fuming. At the time, I didn't realise why he was so angry. But now, obviously, we know it's clear as day why. And obviously the race was track was red flagged. There was no one ahead of him, and he went too far, right? But exactly as you say, Stephen, they're two separate issues, right? Pierre sped after he passed the truck under red flag conditions, and that's deserving of a penalty. That isn't right? You can't be speeding. Hit 251 kph apparently. But the problem is that's not really relevant to. That's a separate issue to the fact that, and we talked. I talked about this at Monza, and I know it kind of divided opinion a bit. And obviously at Monza the conditions weren't bad. For me, if you got machinery on track, you red flag the race. For me, and whether you want to do it because all the red flag does is the problem is, you can't stop these cars on track. You can't just get everyone just stop, right? Do that, and then we'll get going again. The cars will just overheat. We can't do that. So what you can do is you can drop a red flag, bring everyone in, get everyone just pull down the pit lane. You get all of the cooling, the dry ice and all that, right? To keep the cars there. And then once the big machinery's done its stuff, right, to get rid of the car, then why can't we just... drivers don't even have to go into their pit boxes. Pit lane, stop, dry ice, cool. Spend the 5-10 minutes that you need to get the car recovered, then safety car back out, and then do a safety car restart. Don't do a standing start. You don't have to restart the race again from standing, because all you're doing is you're basically just taking a safety car period and putting a pause in the middle of it where everyone comes in. No one can change tyres and all that. You're just putting a pause, and then you just do the safety car restart that you would have done anyway, but you just do it with a pause in the middle. I don't see why we can't just do that. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? That seems to make sense to me. But maybe it doesn't. Maybe I'm just talking waffle. Is there any good reason why they can't do that? Genuinely. So safety car's out. Oh, we're going to need a recovery vehicle on track. Okay, everyone into the pits. Stop. Dry ice. Boom. Recover the car. Right, everyone, back out. Back behind the safety car. Do a safety car restart. No, but even the tyre strategy thing doesn't make sense. Because, don't let anyone change tyres. Just do a safety car restart. It allows you to just pause. You just pause. Pause. No more laps. You're not lapping around behind the safety car waiting for something to happen. You just pause. Yeah, right. You just freeze the race if you need to get machinery out on track to deal with it, or if you need to get marshals out on track as well. Because don't get twisted as well. There was machinery on track. There was also a marshal on the track when Gasly went past. It's essentially a red flag, but instead of having a standing restart, you just kind of pause it. No one gains, no one misses out relative to the gains and misses that you get with a normal safety car. You know, say you've got the safety car comes out and you quickly jump into the pits and then you come out again. There's always going to be slight gains. But you get gains from safety cars, and you get losses from safety cars. So FIA is much more interested in Pearson's. Hard to disagree. And look, that's the thing. It's given this is Suzuka, given what happened in 2014, the blatant it shouldn't take, right. The problem is, if Pierre hits that truck, the halo's not saving him, right? The speed is going, he's done for, yeah? And then, if that happens, this conversation is so much more emotive, so much more, there's so much more, I think it's clear, I guess. This conversation is much more clear. Because Pierre didn't hit anything and everyone was okay, it's easy to just be like, oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, look, these things happen like this. But we saw from the reaction from not just Pierre, loads of these drivers talking about it. And it's not good enough. And it shouldn't take someone getting hurt, someone dying, for these things to be learnt from. If you've got machinery on track, just neutralise the race. Pause the race in the pits. If you need marshals on track. And you can't... There's still a place for safety cars. No doubt, right? There's still a place for safety cars in certain situations. But especially when you got machinery on track. And look, race time limit, sure. But is it any different? Right, what's the difference? What's the difference between safety car and everyone does 3, maybe 4 laps behind the safety car with machinery on track? What's the difference between that and safety car comes out 1 lap, then everyone pauses in the pit lane for a few minutes, dry ice, right, keep cars cool, and then the cars go back out again. You've not used any more time. The only difference is that instead of spending those laps driving around the track, the cars are spending those laps sat still in the pits. That's the only difference. Yeah, and tyres, just don't let him change tyres. Just you're on the tyres you're on. Deal with it. Yeah, but tyre strategy is not a good enough reason to not do that. And also, I don't get how that makes a difference to the... For me, it's red flag light. Yeah, maybe. Red flag 0. That's the solution, right? Yeah, and it stops punches from debris, blah blah blah. Yeah, maybe it should be a pink flag in honor of me. This is the thing, right? Every solution, there will always be. I'm sure there's some potential cons to that solution that I haven't considered, and maybe there are some cons, but that the pros sorry, massively outweigh the cons. The pros of there is 0% chance of a car hitting a piece of machinery on track. There's 0% chance if you do it like that. Now there is a percent chance. We've seen cars be sent out with machinery on track before a fair few times. I remember, what was it? Was it in Turkey the year before last? 2020 maybe? I seem to remember. Was it Turkey or Portimao? I always get them two tracks mixed up for some reason. I think there was where cars were sent out when there was machinery still on track, and there was a kick up about it from the drivers. It might have been Monza. Well, yeah, no, Monza this year. It was Monza this year. But yeah, it's happening too much, and honestly, it's just it's just sad that like this is what we're kind of discussing, right? Right, it's 12 o'clock now. Anyway, I think I made my point. 12 o'clock now. Chris Medland's just tweeted, while we wait for the FIA budget caps to be released later this afternoon, my random stat of the day. Alfa Romeo points. First 9 races, 51. Last 9 races, 1 point. I mean, it's a fair point, Chris. Yeah, so apparently later this afternoon, budget cap certificates. So there's no news yet, but it will probably be later this afternoon. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to do a live stream. Some bits have come up, but I guess keep your eye on Twitter, keep your eye on YouTube and whatever, and I'll wrap this up here now because we've been streaming for almost an hour and a half. It's been a good waffle. Nice, Sander. It's a shame you've missed most of it, mate. But you can watch it back. That's the beauty. You can watch it back after. So yeah, cheers everyone for coming. F1 talking points. Yeah, I actually need to let the boys know I'm probably not going to be able to do that. But Hayden, Aldas, and Matt will all be there. But yeah, thank you all for coming. Appreciate you all taking the time. It was an interesting race. Well done, Max, as well on a second World Championship. Look, I know there's been he certainly hasn't won these championships in there's been controversy surrounding both to much less of an extent than the first, of course, because it was just a matter of time for Max this year. But yeah, thoroughly deserved this year, no doubt. Best driver on the grid this year, no doubt in my mind. I think Max is frighteningly good. And him and that Red Bull is just a joke at the minute. So fair play. Hopefully Mercedes, Ferrari, maybe Alpine, maybe McLaren, maybe Aston Martin. Who knows? Like next year, hopefully there's more of a. We can't rely on Ferrari, it seems, to be the challenger because strategy. But hopefully Ferrari pull their fingers out because I think Leclerc, in the right circumstances, I think Leclerc can definitely challenge, if not beat Max. But yeah, cheers everyone for coming. Thank you again, Matthew, as well, mate, for the $2 Appreciate it, my Australian friends. And yeah, go and watch Matt's video. It's linked at the top of the chat. It explains the whole Gasly situation really well and with some nice graphics and that. So yeah, cheers everyone. Have a good day. Farewell. Goodbye. Adios. Au revoir. I just realised Shy FX has been playing in the background. I'm probably going to get a copy strike. Great.